Time being 7 o'clock, I call the City Council meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone, and let the roll reflect that all members are present except for Councilmember Lund, and a quorum has been established. This evening, we have a proclamation recognizing LGBTQ Pride Month, and we will start with Councilmember Brox.
Whereas we reaffirm our common beliefs, aspirations, and commitments to ensure that Hastings is a safe and caring community for all persons.
And whereas the City of Hastings is committed to fostering acceptance of all its residents and preventing discrimination, social stigma, and harassment based on sexual orientation or gender identity, and
Whereas the City Council has adopted a set of strategic priorities that includes ensuring diversity, equity, and inclusion in city processes and operations, and helping to make Hastings a welcoming community for all, and
Whereas the City of Hastings recognizes the importance of building protective factors for the LGBTQ+ youth in our community, and
Whereas the City of Hastings appreciates the work done by IDEA and the Thrive to advocate for diversity and equity during this month and throughout the year, and
Whereas we recognize there is still more work to be done to ensure our LGBTQ+ family members, friends, and neighbors are treated equally and with dignity. Now therefore, Mayor Mary Fassbender and the Hastings City Council do hereby proclaim and recognize the month of June 2022 as LGBTQ+ Pride Month in the City of Hastings. Thank you. Tonight we have new employee introductions, and Hastings is very fortunate to have many new employees dedicated to our community. Tonight we will introduce several new hires and promotions that will be recognized. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. In April, we welcomed Charlie Judge to the city as the facilities manager. He's unable to join us this evening, but you have his photo there. Charlie brings many years of solid experience, most recently as the chief plant maintenance engineer at the Minnesota Veterans Home here in Hastings. He has also worked at the middle school in a maintenance capacity. He has quickly been digging into a few deferred maintenance items and has been a great help in planning for the boiler replacement as part of the upcoming City Hall Dome HVAC project. When he's not attending to our facility needs, he is the shuttle driver making sure his kids get to their activities and events. I think that might be where he is this evening, but we're very thankful to have Charlie on the team.
John Townsend.
I guess I'm up. People are looking at me quizzically. I've got the honor to welcome a very strange unicorn, which is Sean Shorey here. We were in very desperate need to find someone with building experience to help us out in building inspections. As you know, we are a very busy organization, and when Sean's application came forward, we could have been more than pleased. I mean, Sean brings forward a tremendous amount of experience to the position. Looking at his background, he was born in Littleton, Colorado, lived a lot of his life there, served in the U.S. Army in Desert Storm, and got into plumbing and mechanical plumbing. He's a licensed plumber, been that for many years, and he's been going forward with his building inspections from that standpoint. He's coming to Minnesota with his new bride here, who lives here, Susan, who is here tonight, and they have 24 days? 26 days. But no one's counting till the blessed event comes. So we're very fortunate to have him here. Together, both Susan and Sean have 6 kids, 3 of them here in Minnesota, 1 in Okinawa, Japan, serving in the Navy, 1 in the Virgin Islands, and 1 in Colorado. So Sean has been doing double duty here over the last month or two, helping his youngest kid graduate high school in Colorado, and then we'll be here in a full-time capacity after that. So Sean, come on up here and I want to welcome you to Hastings. Thank you so much for being a part of the staff. And I know from talking to Travis and talking to the other guys, they're so glad that you're here to share your expertise.
All right. Well, we're not here to recognize any new staff for our group. We're here to recognize some promotions within our department. So starting that out, we'll start with our first 3 promotions are all for the lieutenant position. These positions have just been filled after being vacant for some time. And we took some time to reorganize those to better utilize those positions and get the right people in those roles. So welcoming, our first one is Tim Likes. Tim started, if you want to come up, Tim. Tim started with the department in 2016. He was promoted to lieutenant at the beginning of this month. He's been involved in many aspects of our department, including many committees, staff development, and working with some of our availability software, so we're happy to have him up in that position. Our next one is Jeremy Bickner. If you want to come on up, Jeremy. Jeremy also started in 2016, and has also been involved in a lot within our department, including training, many of our committees, and also helping with staff development. And then our third member, who's not here, if I just click this, will it go to the next one? Is Robert Wargo. Robert's been with the department since 2012, and like our other 2, has also been involved in a lot of training, many of our committees, and we're hoping to utilize these 3 folks to really help us out with our paid-on-call staff. Our next change in our staff is Jamie Stevens. Many of us already know Jamie, as Jamie was one of our captains with the department. He actually started with the department in 2007, was promoted to firefighter paramedic in 2012, became one of our first fire captains in 2015 when we added those positions, and now he's moved into our fire inspector role. So we're excited to have Jamie in there. He brings a large amount of experience in the inspections from a previous job that he had at another part of the city. So with that, I welcome all of our new promotions.
Council, if we step forward for a photo. It's always exciting for our community to have new hires and promotions, so. Tonight, we have a presentation with the Pleasant Hill Library and Branch Manager Julia. Oh, she's already up there. Welcome. Thanks for coming.
Gotta get the technology set, so it'll
Yeah, there
actually
you
work this
go.
time. Mayor Fassbender, council members, thank you so much for having me here tonight. As Mayor Mary said, I'm Julia Carlos. I'm the branch manager at the Pleasant Hill Library here in Hastings, and just here to share a few library highlights since I was here about 6 months ago when we celebrated all of the staff and their years of service. So I just picked the celebrations, which couldn't be better. 2021 at a glance for the library, we had at our location 62,000 visits approximately. That's about 80% of where we were pre-COVID, kind of across the system. Ours is a little who knows because of our remodel. We had about over 228,000 items checked out from Pleasant Hill, which is about 10 items per resident of Hastings. And system-wide, we had just about 10,000 people attend our virtual and in-person programs. So that's for across the county. I expect that number to go up quite a bit this year because we're offering a lot more events and programs. Some other highlights at the system level include the return of our Sunday hours, which is at 7 of our locations, including Pleasant Hill. We are open Sundays all summer now, which is new. So we're glad to have that. And yesterday, I think we did 10 new cards for people in the library. So it was really fun. We have our technology, including our Chromebooks and hotspots that you can check out. We recently did a survey on those, about 3,000 checkouts. We got 850 surveys. Over 60% of those people have no other internet access in their homes. So that we feel like it's really making a difference for a lot of people. And we're reaching the majority of those folks also had a family income under $25,000, and a high percentage were Black, American Indian, or Hispanic. People are using that technology to do things like connecting with family, searching for jobs, doing government applications, health and mental health. So there's a lot of different, and just entertainment too, which is, everybody needs that. So we are super excited about continuing to offer those in the library. Summer Discovery, our annual reading and learning program. Story times in person are coming back, actually starting tomorrow. They'll be outdoors for us on our beautiful patio, weather permitting. We so far are doing our no youth fines that started at the beginning of the year on all those children and teen materials, just trying to remove barriers to library access. We also are doing a lot of work this year with community engagement, everything's been, disrupted over the past few years, and just trying to get out there, connecting with a lot of different groups. And this includes, we have a new community engagement van that we partnered with the county fleet. They found us a van that we put cool logos and everything on the outside, and we're going to take that around to a lot of events, like there's a Juneteenth in Burnsville. It'll be at our library for a few things, so events at libraries and events around the community. We're excited to see that. Some of our local highlights include Dakota County Library's first ever Pride celebration, which will be taking place Saturday the 18th. This is a family-friendly event that we're going to have art projects, we're going to have resources, sidewalk chalk, a bubble dance party. I think it'll be a really great time. Summer Discovery starts Monday of next week, so every kid who participates in that's for birth going into grade 12, they get a free book. As I mentioned, outdoor story time. We're also doing crafternoons for adults the second and fourth Wednesday of the month, so you can come just hang out with other crafters, maybe learn a new craft, just trying out some new things to connect folks in the community. We have a big theme of gratitude this year. We've been through a lot, and this is our library staff. On the top is a picture of our staff the day we reopened our remodeled building. We haven't been taking a lot of group pictures lately, so that was the one I had. We also celebrated 2 retirements. Our youth services librarians, Gladys and Barb, retired this winter, and we have Andrea on the left and Megan on the right are our new youth services folks. We're excited to have them on board, and I'm grateful for everything that they are doing. I'm also really grateful to our volunteers and our Friends of the Library group. They help us out with a lot of things. These are just some of the projects that they've done, including a zillion buttons for Harry Potter book night. Some teens wanted to sew, so we found some adult mentors who are teaching them about sewing, and they're making quilts and lanyards and I don't know what all. They're making bookmarks to take to senior outreach. And then our Friends of the Library support a lot of our work financially and with volunteer time, including this new book display that's in the teen area. And of course, We all have a lot of thanks for our customers as well. There's no point of having the library without people coming in. So this post on the top from Facebook was in a Hastings group. Somebody highlighted our nature backpacks, which have binoculars, a journal, an activity book, and a ruler, so you can go out, learn about nature. And within just a few days of this getting posted, all of them got checked out. So it worked. And then on the bottom is a comment card, or it was in our comment card box from, I presume, a young patron. So that's what keeps us doing the things we do every day is the folks that come into the library. And that's really it from me. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them now, or I also have my contact information on this slide. If you have anything to follow up later, I'd be happy to answer any questions at any time.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update. I will say I utilized what you suggested for me. I went
Good.
on to Libby, which is an app you can go on to and download a book, and it was so nice.
Yeah.
So, anyway, because they didn't have the book at the library, so
We have ways.
Yeah.
We'll get it.
it was great.
Cool, thank you. Glad
Thank
it
you.
worked.
Okay, council members, are there any corrections to the minutes or the workshop from the regular meeting on May 16th? Okay. For public comments, we have options for comments to be mailed in prior to the meeting, as well as interactive feature during the meeting. For the emailed comments, they have been forwarded to the city council, and their receipt is acknowledged. Please recognize that items not on the agenda will not be discussed this evening. For live comments, they may be either through our Zoom feature or in person. We ask the attendees either raise their hand in the audience or use the raised hand feature on Zoom. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the council at this time? Okay. And I don't see anyone on Zoom. All right. Council members, are there any council items to be considered? Okay, and council, I understand that there was a request to pull number 5 from the consent agenda, the appointment of header commissioners, so we will do that, and I will put that under the reports from community, under reports in the community development section later on. Council, I would accept a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda. Councilmember Liefeld and Councilmember Brox, discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. Okay, and that motion prevails. Tonight, under community development, we have an appeal of administration decision with Hudella at 15211 Ravenna Trail, and the item was tabled on May 16th. And Community Development Director John Hinsman is here. At first, I would like to have a motion to bring the item back off the table onto the floor again. Councilmember Fox and Councilmember Liefeld. All those in favor of that motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. We will now have an introduction by Community Development Director John Hinsman, and followed by an appeal by Mr. Hudella and potential action by City Council. Please note that the reversal of a decision by administration would be tonight, because of the absence of Councilmember Lund, it would be a 6 of 6. Thank you, John, and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. So tonight is a resolution before you pertaining to a provision within the city code that is being appealed by Mr. Hudella here. Last meeting, this was tabled. I can go through a little bit of the information that we looked at the last meeting. I'll be brief on that one. Essentially, we have a situation here where we have a provision within city code, which is this section here, section 15505 F4, which pertains to fences around swimming pools. It says that fences installed around swimming pools from the ground up must maintain a 4-foot high and non-climbable with a self-closing and self-latching gate. Now, the words non-climbable are what's really at case here. We have a situation in which we've made a determination that a fence that has been constructed by Mr. Hudella is, in our opinion, climbable and would be in violation of this code. And we have the contention from Mr. Hudella that the fence that we see here is not climbable, and he's seeking a judgment from the council tonight pertaining to that. As the mayor had pointed out, this is a situation in which to overturn this would require a unanimous vote, 6 of 6, because of the absence that is here tonight. Again, where we left this at the last meeting on May 16th was the council was seeking some further direction on how to make a determination of climbability. One of the suggestions at that standpoint was to contact the Department of Labor and Industry, who manages the building code from a state standpoint, and ask for any guidance that they would be able to give us on determining climbability. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful in doing that, successful in contacting them, but they would not render an opinion on that because it was not a definable building code issue within state statutes. So in situations like that, the state statute refers to Merriam-Webster's dictionary. So going through the definitions of what climbable is there, I did add a little bit within your report. Most applicable to upward or raise oneself, especially by grasping or clutching with the hands. So that's really where we're at tonight, is a determination as to whether the fence we see here is climbable or non-climbable. Some history on this again. We had let's go back here. We had a application for a pool and fence by Mr. Hudella back in February of last year. The permit itself was by Performance Pool and Spas, which was the installer of the fence around the pool. The fence permit with the pool permit is shown here. It showed on here that there would be a 4-foot decorative aluminum fence that would be constructed around here. So that is the application that was submitted by Performance Pool and Spas. So that permit went forward, was approved, and was issued in February of 21. In July of 21, Mr. Hudella had emailed city staff that he would be taking over the installation of the fence instead of PPS. So the permit that was provided by PPS would now be the responsibility of Mr. Hudella. We agreed to do that. The fence went up. We presumed that the fence would be as permitted, which would be the 4-foot decorative aluminum fence. Upon inspection in October, found out that that was not the case, that there was a cable rail fence, and the cable rail fence was determined to be climbable. And that's where the situation came forward, where we have the action before you tonight, where we had made the contention as staff that the fence is climbable. Mr. Hudella is claiming that it is non-climbable. He's presented some information within the report here pertaining to other residences in town that were not required to put a fence up because they had a heavy-duty auto cover, and had some information there pertaining to cable rail fences used otherwise within other places, and some email where he offered to submit plans for the fence, was told that he didn't need to. Want a clarification on that one. From what I understand is what we were attempting to do here with the original permit was to allow him just to move forward and to make it as uncomplicated as possible. Assuming from our standpoint that the decorative aluminum fence would be constructed, perhaps there was some missing communication in there, but we assume that the permit that was approved by us would be followed through by Mr. Hudella and constructed in this fashion. So we have a resolution before you tonight that would be upholding staff's assertion that this fence is climbable and that action would need to be taken by Mr. Hudella. I did contact him via email here and presented the information to him prior to the meeting. I does not believe he is here tonight. So that's all I have, and I can stand for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, John. Council discussion, Councilmember Vaughn.
Thank you. John, do we allow, who traditionally pulls the permit? The company? Performance Pool and Spa? Have we ever transferred a permit to the homeowner to take it over to finish the project?
You know, council member, I don't know how often that happens. I mean, I think it would be safe to say it's a more of an unusual circumstance that does come up. I think from our standpoint, we were just trying to make it easier in the situation. Instead of having Mr. Hudella come back and get a new permit for the fence, we figured We have the permit in here with the fence and the pool. Let's just work off of this.
It's allowable though, so it can happen. What I'm getting at is Performance Pool and Spa, I would think would have a big interest in this because their name pulled the permit. And now they kind of transferred it to the homeowner saying, you finish it up, but make sure my name is going with it. And my conclusion is we're in difference of opinion on the homeowner says it's not climbable and our inspector says it is. And the problem is it's built. And we didn't, the communication in there, because all that says is a decorative aluminum fence. Where I get hung up a little bit is, he did install a cover that is, according to the documentation, is safe, that people can walk on. I still want to know the city, we allowed someone to build something and then at the very end say, that doesn't work. Well, there's nowhere to go backwards to say, hey, you never told us what you're going to build, except for this from a different company. I get a little clumsy on this, and I like to support staff, but in this case, I think the resolution should say that that fence is acceptable as long as that safety cover is on it. If that homeowner or whoever buys this place someday takes that cover off, they got to replace the fence. That's how I see the resolution should be completed, that I feel comfortable with the current fence as long as there's a safety cover on it. The ownership still goes on the person that owns the facility. The risk is on the person that owns it. And an insurance company, they have a daycare there. They're all signing off on it. It's just we're into a difference of words, a difference of opinion. Is it climbable or not? I mean, I thought we were going to see a thing out here, and if someone's going to ask me to climb it, I'd rather not do that. That's where I'm at, and I just think that there were some mistakes made here, and I think the homeowner made a big investment on that cover, and I think we need to recognize that. So that's where I'm at with this, that I think there was some mistakes made on process, and I think the homeowner did the right thing by putting the cover on it. I still think the homeowner's wrong by not getting the final say, by taking over someone's permit that he hired to do. So there's mistakes on both sides on this one. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilmember Vaughn. Councilmember Leifeld.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would completely agree with everything you said there, Councilmember Vaughn. The big thing that caught, I would not have. The big thing I'm really hearing, though, is that insurance piece. I have a pool in my backyard as well, and my fence is waiting for a windy day to go down, but I'm insured. My insurance agent wanted to know about my fence. That's the piece that gets me. Nobody wants a drowning. Nobody wants kids wandering into their pool. But that cover, boy, that's the do-all right there. So I'm going to, again, to echo Councilmember Vaughn, I really don't like to get in the habit of going against staff's recommendations because you guys are our experts. But in this particular case, I think we might need to take a step back and look down the road at our ordinance in general and its wording. I was quite surprised to find out that the ordinance is a 4-foot fence. As a 5'2" individual, I told you I could get myself over any 4-foot object. Lori might have to push from the back, but I could get over it. I could get over it. So I think we need to look at this down as a bigger picture, but right now, I feel as though we have to support the resident in this particular situation. Thanks, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilmember Leifeld. Councilmember Bratz.
Thank you. I guess my question is, I was thinking more futuristically about how do we prevent the situation in the future. I get the situation that we're in. I think there was, as Councilmember Vaughn alluded to, there was some process failures. So when I think about this situation, I try to think, well, what can we learn and do better in the future? So even if we're willing to grant an exception here, how do we take on the responsibility of making it more clear in the beginning? Because as they have both said, Councilmember Leifeld and Councilmember Vaughn, I hate to see someone spend money, put in a fence, and then have to take it down after the fact. So when I look at the diagram, I see that it says we have a 4-foot tall decorative aluminum fence, and in the application, I didn't see anywhere where we ask about the nature of the fence. Is that something that we can do going forward so that we understand this issue up front? Or maybe I don't know how permitting works as well as you do, John. and I certainly don't. Is that too detailed to get into when somebody's pulling a permit? Or is that something that maybe we should be including so that we don't end up in this situation again?
Sure. I think in ways that we can prevent the situation happening again, one of them is to be clear within our fence handout as far as what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable. If a cable stay fence is not acceptable as a fence around a pool, we state that within there, so the homeowner is clear on that. That would be a very simple thing for us to do. As far as the permit application itself, having information or specifications specifically to the fence other than just having a 4-foot decorative aluminum fence would be helpful. My interpretation of what a 4-foot decorative aluminum fence may differ from what another one's would be.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I guess my other question would be, as I look through the materials and sort of our discussion last time, it was about how do we base this on something? If we're gonna talk about what is climbable and non-climbable, how do we base it on something? Well, I think we understand the Department of Labor and Industry didn't want to weigh in on that. And we have vague language in the state statute. So my next question is, how do we make this clear for the residents of Hastings? I think it might be revisiting the ordinance, or maybe it's in the materials like we just discussed, but I think we need to make sure that it's clear. If the state legislature is unclear and other cities are unclear and there's no case law and we're unclear, it seems like that is a policy issue that we should be handling so that we're all clear in the future. And so I don't know if that means revisiting this ordinance or making it more clear in the materials like we've already been talking about, but I would just like to see us consider clear language so that we don't end up being in the situation where we're arbitrating between staff and residents, because we respect the views of both of those parties. And I think for me, I feel uncomfortable when these kind of decisions come to me because we are picking sides and it feels like it can be a losing situation. So I want everybody to feel like they're winning at the end of these discussions. And so my solution to that is just to be more clear. So that's what I would like to propose, is that we either look at the ordinance or we make our materials much more clear so that, and experience is a great teacher. Now we've been through this, and I'm sure anybody who's gonna work on these applications or sees them is going to have this in their mind in the future. But, you know, how can we support you as a staff member to make this clear so we don't have this level of discussion in the future?
Agree with that, council member and mayor. Just to point out again here, when we had this permit come in, what was constructed was not what the permit said. This was going to be a 4-foot aluminum fence. This was not constructed by the applicant. There's some issues that we could have been more clear about, absolutely, on this one. But there's the situation that the applicant took over a permit and failed to follow through on the details of the permit, which led to a situation in which a fence was constructed that did not meet our specifications. So I just want to make sure that that point is clear tonight too. The other one is the climbability aspect of it, the question that we're being asked for tonight. The pool cover itself doesn't directly address the climbability issue, which is of nature tonight. I've had several conversations with our building official pertaining to these types of covers and his comfort level as those being being used in these situations in lieu of a fence. I know that's not what's being proposed, but there is some concern about the pool covers themselves failing over time, not latching all the way that they should be, and creating a nuisance situation where, not nuisance, but a real dangerous situation, that if a kid was to somehow fall in there, that now they are in this pool and not able to be seen because the cover is over most of it. So I'm just sharing those concerns tonight from our building official.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Mayor?
You?
Want light on?
Oh, sorry. I always have my light on.
No, I do.
Well, oh, I'm sorry. Dan, yes.
Just a
Deep
couple
in
of,
thought.
couple of other comments I wanted to make for clarification. Although we're seeing the permit on the screen right here, we give the applicant also brochure information that quotes the ordinance and says non-climbable. So there is additional expectations or information passed on to them. The other piece, noted some concerns from the building official about the reliability of the pool cover. The pool cover is not in our ordinance as an exception. The ordinance simply talks about climbability and not other options that somebody might pursue. So really the question is that climbability piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. I agree with all of the conversation that we've just had. And so I was just wondering, as an action item, if this is something that we can send to one of the committees of the council to work on that language so that it's clarified. I feel like oftentimes we have conversations like this, and then it just falls off our radar where we don't swing back to it and actually follow up. And so I'm just wondering, well, what can we do as a council to take proactive action? And if that means, sending it to one of the councils, or one of the committees of the council, I'm not sure which, if it would be the planning committee of the council or operations or which it would be. Public safety. Oh, public safety. There you go. That's a really good one to send it. And so I don't know if we have to take a vote on that, but I think that it makes sense for that to go to the Public Safety Committee to have further conversations, so we're tightening up that language. And then another point I just wanted to make was, it's funny how over the last 6 years, we've had other situations where, language was really vague. Like, remember when the RV park wanted to go in next to the hotel out on 61, and there was a lot of discussion around what camping, a campground meant and how that was defined and, that whole snafu. And so I just find it's kind of similar to that in a lot of ways, and all that caused a lot of problems. And so I just think that it would be good, as we did with that one, where we nipped it in the bud, where we took proactive action and we actually did follow up on it in the near term. And so I have a lot of sympathy for Mr. Hudella and in his situation. I'm sure that he wants to do what's right, but I think we've also had other situations. If you remember, there was a resident who built a deck, who installed it without asking for permission to do so, and then he tried to appeal it as well, and it didn't meet the ordinance, and we had to ask for him to remove that side deck, remember? And so that was costly for him as well. And so I think that we do have other situations which we've seen in the last few years, and I think that it's important for us to be, consistent in what it is that we're being asked to do, in supporting staff's recommendation. And short of wanting to, go out there and actually try to get Lisa over the fence to see if it's climbable, it does look like a ladder, right? And that you would be able to get up it. And so it just common sense tells you that it's a climbable fence. And I don't know how it is that we would get around that. If it's a firm cord aluminum material, it has to be able to withstand someone's weight and to be able to actually leap over it, so which would make it climbable. I think it would be interesting to know what aluminum, when it said it was an aluminum decorative fence, what does that mean to staff? Like, does that mean more of a mesh fence, like a tight mesh fence generally? Is that what would be seen? Or, because in this case with Mr. Hudella, what he did install was a decorative fence. It's very attractive, and it has aluminum cords that go across it. And so I guess, so that's coming back to wanting to firm up that language just so that it's clear, what do these things mean, and to have firmer understandings. And then last, I do agree, I asked this question in our last meeting, if applicants are actually given what the definition is to follow in the ordinance, and they are given notice that it has to be, it can't be a climbable fence. And so I feel that, and actually in that respect, that staff did do at least their due diligence in providing that kind of information. And I'm always the worst. You guys know that about missing emails and little details every once in a while. It's like, oh, well, that's right, I missed it. And I'm always, more than happy to admit that I was wrong and shoot, I missed that little detail, and how do I make that right? And so I think that it's important that we all recognize that we miss sometimes details and that we have to do what's right. And I think that he was more than willing to do what was right if the council gave that direction. So, right. So anywho, I'll be supporting the staff's recommendation moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Councilmember Fox.
Thank you, Your Honor. I am very much struggling with this because I also will be supporting staff's recommendation on this resolution. I think, John, you put it very well, that our job today is to be the Board of Adjustments and Appeals, and that is a really hard role to play, but once in a while we have to do that. And I have a fence similar to this in my business, and I see children climbing it often. I think this is a climbable fence by definition, and it is our job to decide whether it is or whether it isn't. So thank you for looking into it with DLI, and unfortunately they just didn't come back with the information that we hoped that they would. But I think noting that Mr. Hudella failed to follow through on the details of the permit that was put in front of our staff is really what I am stuck on. So I will also be supporting the resolution affirming the determination by staff.
Thank you, Councilmember Fox. Councilmember Lightfoot.
Thank you, Honor. The one thing I always appreciate most is the conversations that we have back and forth and the being able to hear different pieces of something that really make you think about it. Because my head's stuck on the word climbable and what that means from the ordinance itself. That's where I'm at, right? Because yes, I told you I could get over this fence, but I can also get over the fence they suggested they put up. So that's where my head was coming into this. Based on the information, that everyone's presented, where it was supposed to be this particular fence, the aluminum decorative fence. Again, what's that mean? I think of corrugated aluminum. That's what I think of when I hear that. So I don't know that isn't the fence that was put on. This fence, yes, is climbable. Is the other one? Yes. So the answer to Councilmember Fox's point then is, as the appeals, party here, where we look at it and say, yeah, it doesn't meet that definition. It is a climbable fence. So I appreciate my fellow council members and always being able to add insight to something. None of us are professionals at this sort of thing. And I've been doing an awful lot of fencing research because, as I mentioned, I just need a big wind. So I've been doing many, many things, and none of the fences I've looked at without a ladder would be climbable, period. So I'm very, back to, John and Dan, your point regarding the original fence and what the ordinance says today. Yeah, based on what it says right now, he doesn't meet the criteria. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilmember Lightfoot. Councilmember Vaughn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Where I'm really hung up on this, though, was a mistake was made after it was built. We can go back and we talk about the deck. No permit was even pulled for that. Different story.
But he knew better.
Whatever the case, didn't pull a permit. The last time I had to make an appeal, the developer didn't even go forward yet. He at least was putting in front of us, so no investment was made. This investment was made, and if you or I were making that investment, you're sitting on a lot of money that now has to come back down. You have to buy a new one, and you're not going to be able to return the old one. So we got to take a little bit of fault here that this thing wasn't made before it was something that happened. Now, if we're having this appeals before it was constructed, I'm with you with Councilor Lightfoot. Then it's a different story. But this one went too far for me. That's where I'm hung up on. I think we need to make some resolutions because we can say, hey, go take this one down. But if I go back in that memo, I say you got to go find those other 3 pools that we allowed it. Then what are you going to do? Make them put a fence in? I don't think we're going to do that. But that's what I'm worried about by a precedence. We let 3 go before. Now we got another one that already made the investment. So that's my biggest hang up on this. I get it. Staff, I support you 95% of the time. This one, I just can't support it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vaughn. Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. That was actually something I had asked at the last meeting, John, if you could verify that that actually occurred, because at this point, it's hearsay that's being provided as evidence by the the appellant. And so is that true that there actually were 3 pools that were allowed to move forward without the fencing around it?
Councilmember, I'm aware that there were pools that were allowed where the fence was not put in and lockable covers were done in lieu of the fence. Now, I don't believe that should have been done. The building official presently does not believe that that should have been done. We have rules that say this is the way things need to do. So as far as those past ones go, I regret that that happened. But as we move forward now, the ordinance to me is clear as far as what needs to be done in providing protection.
Can I ask one last question of Ms. Land? Corey, is there any liability that the city would be exposed to by allowing the fence to stay as is and then something happens to a child there?
Your Honor, members of the council, it's always difficult to predict litigation. The city is the one with the deepest pockets, so anytime their fingerprints touch any kind of a property decision, in this case a permit, they will be brought in. That doesn't mean that you're necessarily liable or responsible as long as you have findings of fact to support your decision that are not arbitrary and capricious. And I'm confident that if this council chose 6 of 6 to overturn the decision, that you would provide me with the findings to put into a resolution that would be supportable. But absent that, if you just, well, we've done this before, we've approved this kind of thing before, precedence to me is no reason to continue and perpetuate a mistake. There were mistakes made, as Mr. Hinsman said, and so no, we're probably not going to go back to those property owners and require them to put up the fences, but that doesn't mean we have to perpetuate the mistake. So now we know this fence was put up incorrectly. In my opinion, I would say it is a climbable fence. I would say it's an attractive nuisance, actually, for kids. I raised 2 monkeys. They can get up anything. So I do believe that it is a climbable fence, and therefore it violates the code.
Thank you. Councilmember Fulch? I think from looking at it, we can see it is climbable. I think we all agree with that. And, you know, like I said, the missing puzzle last time I spoke is how do we get through that now? And is there a way, Counselor, that we can say that it's okay because of the pool cover? And then after that, I mean, I'm just trying to, so we can all try to work together. We know Shane has put a ton of money and effort into it. There was that missing puzzle in the description of the fence when he was building it. From your side of it, can you see something that council can do for everybody to have what we want?
So obviously, Your Honor, I'm hearing 2 sides. One is it is a climbable fence, therefore it violates the code, and we should support the decision of the building official. The other side is, can we make this work? Can we somehow make this fence fit into our code? It doesn't today. As a lawyer, you can argue both sides. So if I was standing on the opposite side of the fence, sorry, I would argue that you could approve this with the requirement that it have the lockable cover on it and direction to the staff to change your code to allow this in the future so that any future applicant would know this kind of a fence with these strands of cable is allowed. Then write it into your code. Otherwise, support the decision that it is today, which is it's a climbable fence and therefore it's not allowed.
Thank you. Councilmember Layfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. John, I have a question for you. So when Councilmember Fulch was talking about, sending it to committee, which I think is probably a good idea, that we send it to committee. My immediate thought was public safety. Because who are we protecting? I get all the building permits, I get that stuff. We want the houses to not fall down when it's windy, right? We don't want it to start a fire next door when your house catches on fire. I get those things. Can you explain to me what it is as a city? What is it we're trying to do by having the fence ordinance, period? What are we hoping to accomplish?
Okay. Councilman, with the fence ordinance, this is more specific to pool fences. So we have requirements for fencing in general, which is not necessarily protective, but more, defining a boundary. This is more of a protective issue. We have an attractive nuisance as a pool. We want to ensure that there's a structure there which will prohibit people who are younger and who might find this as an attraction to get into from their for their safety's sake. So that's why we have the requirement for the fence, the 4 foot in height, and then with the non-climbable aspect. The non-climbable definition that we have here is not a general fence provision we have. It's only pertaining to pools, and I think it's specifically related to pools because of that safety issue related to it being an attractive nuisance for kids.
Thank you, John. So, as a community, the sole purpose of the pool fence ordinance is to help deter children from wanting to go take a swim when they're not invited. To help the kids.
I would agree that that's a primary reason behind it, yes, is that the most dangerous aspects, in my opinion, of a pool are those that are younger and can't swim. So being able to provide that protection.
Okay, thank you, John. So taking that into consideration, I would feel comfortable supporting staff. Oh my gosh. It's just so complicated. I mean, I don't like the way the ordinance is written. If we're going to argue whether it's climbable or not, I don't feel that this fence is any more dangerous or enticing or easy to get over than a chain link fence. I really have to go against staff on this one. I have to vote in favor of allowing the fence. However, strongly urge that we send this particular ordinance to committee. I'll let the powers here decide which committee for revamping of the wording of it. Because I'm going to go back to my original discussion and argument last time is when you put this fence side by side with the chain link fence, that just doesn't answer the question for me. It doesn't answer the not climbable. If we're going to use the word not climbable, then we can't use our example as a chain link fence. The fence designed for small feet to climb. I mean, that's, I grew up with one in my backyard, my goodness. So I'm going to have to agree with Councilmember Vaughn on this, and I'm going to vote not to support staff on this particular decision and recommend that we send this immediately to committee. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilmember Liefeld. Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. Councilmember Liefeld, I just want to remind you of something that Dan had said at the last meeting, is that there's different kinds of chain link fence, and that the tighter weave is actually not climbable. And because we've all seen, the big gaping ones where you can get your toes in there and plop over. And so I understand what you're saying, but I think that goes to the whole point of really defining what is not climbable, so that it is, because I mean, I think it's true, anybody could get over what was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, a 4 foot, no, that particular 4 foot fence, just with how it is, it's I mean, it visually looks like a ladder. I mean, it's true, staff aren't, I think anyone with common sense would look at that particular fence and agree, yes, that's climbable, right? Unless it was made out of rubber binders and you stepped on it, right? But it looks like it's firm enough that you could actually secure a footing and then get over it. That's my point. And so, I don't know, I guess what's hard is that we're all trying to be reasonable, right? Because we all recognize that a mistake was made and that it wasn't, that, you know, it takes two to tango sometimes, right? And in this circumstance, I think that there was a little give and take on each side. But in the end, it's being, you know, consistent in supporting what our current ordinance is. And so Councilmember Liefeld or Councilmember Vaughn, unless you're willing to make a motion, you know, to say, as, I'm sorry, Ms. Land had articulated, and I don't have that verbatim, the wording, but it was something to the effect that you would specifically allow for this kind of climbable fence to be used in the future as long as it was accompanied by a hard-covered, and whatever the regulations are around that particular kind of topping. And so, and then mind you, you know, plastic is a dangerous thing here in Minnesota, that it has a lot of structural integrity problems over time due to the heat and the cold expansion, and things do, like for instance, with a child safety seat, they're only good for 7 years because of the extreme weathers that we have. And so I don't know what the, you know, what the limit life expectancy is for a cover like that. But, so anyhow, I just think that we're tiptoeing in the kind of water that I'm not sure if we really want to do, you know, on the Diaz here on the fly. And so I'm not comfortable making that kind of motion, just because I don't think that this is the time or the place to do that. But if somebody else was willing to take that on, please feel free to do so.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Councilmember Brox.
So my mentality coming into the meeting was really to strike a compromise, because I think that's really what we're trying to do in all these situations, is to find a middle of the road. When Attorney Land said, if you're willing to put it in ordinance that this type of fence is allowed, in my head, I just shake my head, no way. There's no way that I would put that in ordinance. So to me, that leads me to believe that Councilmember Fulch and Councilmember Fox have said it correctly, which is it's not climbable, it doesn't meet our definition. There's a lot of other things around that. There's a lot of other reasons to make exceptions. However, there's no reason to perpetuate a bad exception. And so when she framed it that way, it really cleared it up in my head, because I would not write an ordinance that said that this fence was allowable. And so that leads me to the conclusion that I need to support staff and the recommendation that they've made, and as painful as that is to me, because I hate to see residents put in money, time, effort on their property and make an investment like this, I also don't want to create a situation where the city is responsible or contributes to a situation of negligence in the future, where somebody is hurt or somebody is killed, and we're responsible for that. And that's what we're all trying to avoid, I know. So I'm not saying if you don't take that position that you want people to die. I'm just saying, for me, in my legal brain, I don't want to side with something that I could see as potentially negligent. And I guess that's kind of where I'm leading to walk towards the staff recommendation, because I think they do have the best interests of the community in mind in general and have a broader view. And I think that's what we're trying to do here, is take a broader view. So I will support staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Councilmember Brox. Councilmember Fox.
Your Honor, I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution affirming the decision of an administrative official determining a climbable fence.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Brox. Additional discussion, council, new discussion? All those in favor of that motion state by saying aye. 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 Opposed to that motion state by saying nay.
Nay.
Okay. Thank you, staff. Thank you, John.
Sure.
Oh, motion prevails, sorry. Thank you, John. And we have a second under community development is appointment of the HEDRA commissioner. Thanks, John.
Sure.
You want to continue?
Yes, we have before you a recommendation from our interview committee, which consisted of Hedra and council member Mark Vaughn and Lori Brox, as well as the president of Hedra, Bruce Golbush, city administrator Dan Waticha, and myself. We interviewed 2 candidates for the position of Hedra and offer the recommendation today of Ben Anderson. With Ben, we were very impressed. We had interviewed him a couple of times, one last year for Hedra and also for Planning Commission. In both those positions, both those interviews, we were impressed by how he had prepared, the knowledge that he had, and his background in the financial industry, that those would be good aspects to bring forward. Unfortunately, at the times in the fall, we had candidates that we felt were stronger, and we appointed somebody else. At this time, we're happy to bring Ben forward as a recommendation on this. He interviewed well again, was well prepared. His home is located on Vermillion Street. He's very engaged in that process. So we bring forward that recommendation for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any discussion, council? Councilmember Fulch.
Your Honor, thank you. You know, I have to agree that Mr. Anderson does do a very nice job in interviewing. I was on the Planning Commission interviews, and we ended up going with Bryce LeBron, and he was, you know, just such a great pick. But afterwards, I did go back to this gentleman, and I encouraged him to apply again, because I agree, he did do a really nice job. I think at this point, one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is because during that particular interview, and then when you look at our council packets, the application for folks to apply for any of the commissions is the same. And I'm really surprised as to how little information was provided on this form, but knowing when we went through the Planning Commission interviews, and then also for the Arts Task Force when we were doing all of those interviews as well, that there's just so little information on the application itself. It's really difficult to get a flavor for how qualified a person is or isn't. And I did have the opportunity to see the application for the other individual who applied, and I think that he recognized the limitations of this application, and he had taken the time to get several references from other well-known individuals within our business community, including the previous chair of Hedra and the Planning Commission, and Dennis Piney, whose opinion I respect tremendously. And so I think that there is room for improvement when it comes to the application process, because I think Councilmember Liefeld said it best right before we began, was that she wouldn't have even called, you know, with so little information being provided on, you know, on the application. And I have to agree, you would never know how well qualified this individual is by what was provided on this application. And so I just think that we should have some conversation about that. And then also, just what more can we do as council members to help drum up to get folks to actually apply? If there were only 2, you know, individuals who put their hat in the ring, you know, for this. I personally feel that Hedra is the most important of all the commissions, and it has the longest term. It's 6 years, and you can be on it for 3 terms, right? And so that's 18 years potentially, 2 terms. So 2 terms is 12 years. Whereas, you know, I think that's just a really long time, you know, to have someone on a commission. And so I think that maybe there's even a higher due diligence that we need to do with Hedra in having a more robust application process for folks to be applying for this. And, you know, we've had some stellar stars come out of Hedra. We've had Councilmember Fox come out of Hedra. And so we really have been blessed, but I just think moving forward into the future, I think that there's opportunity for improvement in the application process. So that's what really I wanted to say.
Thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Councilmember Vaughn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would respectfully disagree. I don't put any commission ahead of any other commission. Residents apply for commissions, if it's Parks Commission, Hedra, Planning. They're all important to us. I would agree that the process to become a member could be more of an opportunity that we maybe take blanket applications for all commissions, and then we make determinations where they go to versus applying specifically for a commission. So I think the process has some ideas there. But since I've been on the council, we've interviewed everybody that's applied. I've never not interviewed somebody that applied. So the application process is not the issue here. If someone says, oh, the application didn't have much to it, we interviewed them. We got good input, and it's a majority vote, especially for this applicant, and he was really good on the first applicant. I just think to highlight it today is wrong. I've said it since I've been here, we could do a better job with our commission and how we use them. That's a discussion I'm willing to have. But to bring this subject up is wrong. This person deserves it. Highly recommend him, and he is going to be a great asset to us on this. All commissions, all residents that serve us are important to me. And so I don't want to highlight one over the other one. They're all the same. It's important to us. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vaughn. Councilmember Brooks.
I think there's also an opportunity just for communication behind the scenes. Like if you have a question about an application process, that's a perfect time to come to another council member or another member of the committee and say, I have concerns about this process. Can I talk to you about it? I mean, I don't think we have to discuss the merits of our applicants in an open public meeting, because I think that that's one, it's going to push people away from being on our commissions because they don't want to be stacked up against each other in a public meeting. Like that's why the interview process is private. That's why we have it privately with conversations one-on-one. So I can honestly say I was a little nervous when I heard this might be pulled, because I don't want to be having that discussion in an open meeting. That's why we have the interview process. And we have to trust each other that if I'm not on the interview panel, but someone else is, if I have a question about it, I go to that person and say, hey, can you tell me about the discussion? Councilmember Leifeld and I had a quick sidebar before the meeting where we talked about it. You know, though we can resolve that offline. So I think we should just do that and trust each other, that when we're involved in this process, we're picking the best possible person with we all have the good of the community at heart, but we have to select someone. And in this case, I think we made a good decision, so.
Thank you, Councilmember Brooks. Councilmember Fulch.
Mayor Fassbender, I just wanted to clarify, I wasn't saying anything bad about this particular individual. As I had said, I had personally encouraged him to step forward again and to reapply for the commissions because he did do such an excellent job in the interview process. But rather, it's when you look at the actual application itself, it's the paper piece of, and we're not asking questions that really provide them the opportunity to highlight what their strengths and weaknesses maybe are. And so that's what I'm getting at, is that that there is very little information that we're asking for on here, and it doesn't give them the opportunity to be able to provide their credentials so that there isn't those kinds of questions moving forward. And so I just wanted to clarify, that wasn't my intention at all in saying anything about this particular. It's just that it is concerning that we only that in the past, we have had situations where we have had limited amounts of applications, and I've said this before, I think that the council should step up and try to help recruit individuals from the community. And so if we can work together more so to help make sure that we have applications, because like I said, I followed up with this individual. I asked him to continue to pursue commission opportunities. And I have reached out to other people within the community, not only to step up for the commissions, but also to step up, for the at-large positions now that are going to be open as well. I think that we have an obligation to try to encourage others that we feel really have a lot of skill sets to provide to the community and encourage them, because oftentimes it takes a person a few times to be encouraged to step forward in these kinds of opportunities. And so anyhow, again, it's not doubting necessarily what the interview panel had experienced, but it's rather if there's because I know in the two situations where I was interviewing individuals on the Arts Task Force and again the Planning Commission, it was very difficult to know what the person's background was with being that we asked them so little in the application process. So that's what I'm getting at here. And and we have to have conversations in public. And so if it's not now, when it's on the consent agenda, to have a conversation about the application process and how it is that we do a better job in recruitment, I don't know when it is, because we need to be cognizant of having public conversations. And so, anywho, side note. Thank you.
Councilmember Fulch.
So I'll make a motion to move forward with the nomination of Mr. Anderson being appointed to the head.
And for clarification, this position starts June 8th.
June 8th, correct. Yeah, we have a HEDRA meeting tomorrow morning at which this person will not be serving in that capacity.
And it will go to December 31st of 2023, filling a position of
Correct.
an absentee.
Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner, yes. Okay. A motion, Mark will second that motion. Any additional discussion, council? Okay, all those in favor of that motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Council members, do you have any announcements? Councilmember Leifeld.
Your Honor, I would like to, for our future meeting, consider amending the Friday night music on Second Street event permit to allow for further discussion to add alcohol to be taken on to Second Street.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Leifeld.
Thank you.
Announcements. On Tuesday, tomorrow, January 7th, join us for the summer kickoff to our 2022 Levy Park events. Live music, Bollywood dance, inflatables, face paintings, caricature artists, balloon artists, and more. All ages are welcome, and this is a free event. Makers Way Alley Market will be between Sibley and Ramsey Street on Thursday, June 9th and 16th. Support area local makers and artisans within our historic downtown and riverfront park by shopping at their markets. Summer programs at Levy Park. Thursday, June 9th, Music in the Park, Divas Through the Decades, supported by Ruth and George Doffing Charitable Fund. Wednesday, June 15th, Storytime in the Park is Rhymes, a partnership with Pleasant Hill Library. Thursday, June 16th, Music in the Park with the Lonesome Losers, supported by Ruth and George Doffing Charitable Fund. Meetings tomorrow, June 7th, 7 a.m., HEDRA. Wednesday, June 8th, 6 p.m., Arts Task Force. Monday, June 13th, 7 p.m., Planning Commission. Tuesday, June 14th, 7 p.m., Parks and Rec Commission. Thursday, June 16th, 6:30 p.m., Public Safety Advisory Commission. Monday, June 20th, 5:30, City Council starts with a workshop on the 2023 budget, and 7 p.m., City Council regular meeting. Council members, I would accept a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Brox and Councilmember Leifeld. No discussion. All those in favor of that motion state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed to that motion state by saying nay. And that motion prevails. We are adjourned.